And if you missed any of the previous months, you can go to United Black Community's YouTube page. And yes, we do have a YouTube page. So you can watch the previous programs we've had. Most of them, the recent ones, are on there. And we try to tackle topics that are important, especially if the topics are not getting really enough attention in our community. So we try to, do that throughout the year. Most people know United Black Community for the work we do during Kwanzaa, but of course, Kwanzaa is just 7 days. We here 365, so we spread out that work throughout the year. So that's why we have these forums, and the list of forums is also listed in the Kwanzaa guide, Kwanzaa directory. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Baba Rasafiq Weusi. He'll do libation for us, and then after him, Baba Imamu can tell us about today's program. Baba Rasafiq, you got it.
Baba Kalechi. I'd like to say peace and blessings and welcome to everyone for our upcoming program. And we're going to have some vital information for you and the family pertaining to health. Of course, we focus on health because that's very important. Health is wealth, and health is how we survive on this planet. We want to make sure you get the proper information so that you can carry out the proper procedures in order to maintain your health. Proper nutrition, proper food, right? And so important that we do that. We do this every year, so we appreciate you joining us tonight. So we want to say divine spiritual blessings of peace, love, power, joy, happiness, revolution, liberation, upliftment, enlightenment, and optimal health in the spirit of our program tonight as we address the crisis in our community, as we improve our health, as we look to solutions to bettering our lives and taking ourselves to a whole nother level. So we give thanks to the Creator, to the ancestors, to the deities that always are with us and protect us and guide us in our everyday actions. So we want to first give thanks to some of those ancestors, those that have come before us, who laid the way for us, who made serious sacrifices in order for us to be here today. So let's start with people in your family, your immediate family, mama, your papa, your sister, your brothers, your cousins. So I'm going to say, to start off, to my mama, Baba, Mama Pearl, and Baba Otis Daniels, who I was fortunate enough to be brought onto the earth by them. And so anyone else that wants to call out their family members, please do so. Feel welcome to do so.
John and Georgiana Bockham.
Edna Stewart, Alexander Stewart, Samuel Hunter Sr.,
Ashe.
Ashe.
Grace Jackson, Florence Jackson, Alfred Jackson,
Ashe.
Inez Fletcher,
Ashe.
Ashe.
John and Georgiana Bockham, Harry and Viola Warren, Henry and Coretta Bockham, and many, many, many more.
Outstanding, Baba. I would like to mention some of my family members who have transitioned. Corella Buchanan, Katie Buchanan, and also Hashim Daniels, a young brother who fortunately passed last year as a result of what they call COVID. And we give thanks for the blessings that they have left with us. Any more family members before we move on to some of our great leaders, our great ancestors who've, again, paved the way for us, who've left us with wonderful words of wisdom, like Malcolm X,
Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Zumbi dos Palmares,
Martin Delaney,
W.E.B. Du Bois,
Nat Turner, Denmark VC, Harriet Tubman,
absolutely.
Nani of the Maroons,
Mary McLeod Bethune,
Queen Zinger,
Absolutely,
Queen
absolutely.
Mother Moore,
Queen Mother Moore,
Professor Dr. Joseph Benjukanan,
Professor Clark,
Dr.
John Clark,
Lasana
Amy
Mack,
Ford.
Lasana Mack.
Yes, sir.
Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba,
Absolutely.
Robert Sobukwe.
Samora Michelle, Amir Cabral,
Yes, indeed. Nelson Mandela, Winnie Mandela.
Jackson Bay, Amy Ashwood, Amy Jocks Garvey.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Kwame Ofoe. Some of our more immediate community members.
Baba Oriefo.
Yes, sir. No question.
Shaka Musa Bara Shango.
Mama Nia Komba.
Yes.
Mama Hassanatu.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, as we have some more, again, we want to give thanks to the Creator, making this happen. Mother, Father God, who continues to bless us and provide sustenance for our continued presence here on the earth. And I want to thank all of you here tonight who have come to take part in this wonderful presentation by the Honorable Dr. Jawara Hunter. So, Sante Sana, peace and blessings, and may we have a beautiful program this evening. All praises to you. Amen.
Yes.
Sante Sana, Bob.
Yes.
Sana Baba Rasafi.
Sante Sana to you. Peace and blessings.
Yeah, well, Baba Mama, you can do the intro.
Okay, welcome, family, and give thanks for those who are online with us today. And we hope to present a very positive and a program dealing with our health. Because without health, I don't think much else will matter. Health is, to me, is number one. And the purpose of today's forum is to these information and research I've gotten is that our community, our people are in a health crisis. And we've been in a health crisis for many, many years. And we haven't totally addressed all of the health challenges that we meet on a daily basis. So we want to address that. And number two, we want to find ways and means of providing this information to our people who may not be privy to be with us today or might not be privy to the information that we're about to present. So we want mainly at the end of Baba Jawara's presentation, we would like for members to share their thoughts and ideas on ways and means of providing information to the broader community. I think we need we do ourselves a disservice if we don't provide that broader reach for our people concerning such a critical topic of health. So those are the basic purposes of today's celebration, not celebration, but today's forum. And we also hope that you who are online with us today will be inspired to make any improvements necessary in your health as well. So we have two well-respected medical doctors who will help us this evening. And these brothers have been on the front line for many, many years. And I know some of you may know who they are. But the first brother is Baba Iyapo also known as Dr. Walker. Now, Baba Yapo, New York brother out of Brooklyn, New York, he came to DC in the 1970s, him and his family, and we met at Ujamaa Shule. And at Ujamaa Shule, we formed a health collective called the Ujamaa Health Collective. And we went around this city doing what we're doing right now. This is in the 1970s and early 80s, preaching, teaching, and educating, providing that valuable information about the things that we need to do to maintain viable health. But unfortunately, he will not be able to be with us today. But he did send a message that he wanted me to read. And I'll read that real briefly. This, I think it'll take about 4 or 5 minutes here. His paper is called America, Healthcare, and the Black Community. America remains a country of contradictions. Written high ideals have never been matched by daily events on the ground throughout this land. Healthcare disparities abound and remain shocking in the richest country on the planet. The old adage goes, when America has a cold, the Black community has pneumonia. This has remained true throughout the COVID pandemic. Those hardest hit were in the service sector of the economy, the bus drivers, the meat packers, subway workers, hotel staff, and all of those who could not afford to isolate or stay off from work. We saw high rates of infection and death among African Americans in central cities like New York, DC, Chicago, New Orleans, Atlanta, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Philadelphia, etc. Nursing homes were hard hit, and no one, in fact, was immune from the devastating impact of this infection. We know that people with comorbidities suffered. Those with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and lung disease were at increased risk for death. COVID amplified healthcare disparities, and that is one of the lessons. There are a myriad of problems related to healthcare in this country. Inadequate access to care remains a glaring issue. During the COVID emergency, Medicaid access was expanded. Now that the emergency has been declared over, Medicaid rolls are being purged. This will create another level of stress and disease because access to care is critical for those with limited means. People avoid the doctor's office often because of cost. Some use the emergency room for primary care, and this model never works because follow-up is limited and care becomes sporadic. We see higher mortality for Black women with breast cancer. We see higher maternity mortality for Black women. We see higher rates for amputation for Black patients with I can't pronounce this word, peripheral, I think that's the word, vascular disease. We see higher mortality for Black patients with colon cancer. All of this in the richest country on the planet. The Surgeon General has recently identified loneliness as a major problem in America. How can this be? Some researchers have identified areas of the brain like the amygdala, part of the limbic system, that might be responsible. It is really just a question of getting your mind right, or is there something deeper going on there? I submit that the real problem is that America has lost its connectivity. When the leading cause for death for children in this country is gunshot wounds, the society is unraveling. It is not a question of having a buddy to talk to. It is a question of people listening, really listening to each other and beginning to grapple with serious issues of our day. Homelessness, unemployment, evictions, poverty, and predatory loans, just to mention a few. These things things create a toxic environment that is not life-giving. People begin to turn to alcohol and other drugs to dull the pain of this daily stress. We have all kinds of diversions in this country: sports, music festivals, comedy clubs, movies, video games, social media, etc. But we remain lonely, isolated, and depressed and disconnected. Although individuals bear the burden and suffer from these conditions, the real cause is not a person failing. It is the culture that continues to foster the notion that only the fittest will survive. And if you're having problems, it is because you as an individual are flawed. This analysis must be rejected. We need a new approach. Health is a community project, and that's what we're doing tonight. Yes, individuals need to make good choices with exercise, a healthy diet, and good habits regarding sleep and rest as part of the solution. But we also need clean air, clean water, renewable energy, an understanding of the principles of public health, and a commitment to eliminate gun violence, healthcare disparities, and other glaring contradictions in this country. We need connections. We need neighborhood health advocates. We need knowledge of where the problem areas are in our community, where trash is not being collected, where boarded up storefronts functioning as drug dens exist. And we need the courage and the conviction to make sure these issues are corrected. We must reestablish deep connections. I am because we are, therefore I am must be the mantra. We must learn to listen to each other, engage, careful, thoughtful listening. We can do this in each aspect of our daily lives. In this way, we have a chance to change the trajectory. We have a chance to make our neighborhoods life-giving. We have a chance to give our children hope and a chance at life as we walk the way of the new world, as Hakeem told us many years ago. So we give thanks to Brother Iyapo, Baba Iyapo, Dr. Iyapo, for that message of encouragement and his assessment on the health of our people in this country. Now, he mentioned something that I was going to mention anyway on the cause of loneliness. This is an article I found in two articles, one with the Washington Informer and one coming out of the Washington Post. And the title of this article is Loneliness is Public Health Threat, Surgeon General says. And I'm gonna just read a few lines in the article. I think this was earlier this month when this article came out. Half of the US adults experience loneliness, which has consequences for mental and physical health, including a greater risk of depression, anxiety, and perhaps more surprisingly, heart disease, stroke, and dementia. That's an article by the Surgeon General. And another article I found in the Washington Informer, this is Dr. Reginald Robinson, cardiologist at MedStar Health Cardiology Associates and board president of the Eastern States of the American Heart Association. And this is his take on the this article is titled "The Rising State of Loneliness Causing Public Health Concern and How Prolonged Isolation Hampers Our Physical Health." Now he quotes, the article quotes an article from the Surgeon General who says that social disconnection significantly increases the risk of anxiety and depression, including the increased risk of heart disease by 29%, stroke by 32%, and even dementia by an astounding 50% increase. Locally, district physicians have also witnessed a growing trend gradually harming the physical and mental of many Washingtonians. Dr. Reginald Robinson, a cardiologist with MedStar Health Cardiology Associates and board president of the Eastern States of the American Heart Association, discussed the insidious domino effect that prolonged feelings of loneliness can cause on the body and mind. Stress, anxiety certainly can affect our sleep, wake cycle, and can affect your heart rate. People come in with triggers that palpitations or skip heartbeats, and stress and anxiety that cause that. So you have a lot more people that were coming in for palpitations or chest pain, whether it was the heart versus acid reflux. It can increase your risk of acid buildup in the stomach and cause heartburn, which feels like you are having a heart attack. So it can precipitate these things. Palpitations, blood pressure, and chest pain are Robinson explained. And lastly, he's going to state that he highly encouraged physical activity, particularly among those organized groups where people can not only maintain a level of exercise to encourage better health, but immerse themselves into groups of people who are enjoying the same activities and building some sense of community within these spaces. And this is an article that I found on loneliness being a healthcare risk in our community as well. So that was Dr. Baba Yapo's thoughts on loneliness, and Dr. Robinson and the Surgeon General. Right now, we'd like to introduce our esteemed guest speaker, Dr. Jarawa Hunter. And before we begin, I hope he would not mind giving his bio about himself and all the wonderful work he has done and is doing in the community today. So right after he finished, I'm going to share a few more words on some health disparities and health crisis among our people. And then we'll open it up for discussion, question and answers. And we want members to participate as far as what are some of the things that we can do to reduce the health crisis in our people, among our people. So that's the order of the forum. So first, we would like for Dr. Hunter to give a brief bio about himself and things that he's done and is doing. Dr. Jawal.
Baba Imamu, thank you. Thank you to United Black Community for all that y'all do consistently for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was invited to do a talk back in the early mid-2000s. I mean, and Yapo was there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Doing this for a while. For those who don't know, Dr. Walker Yapo Rashid, I call him the Malcolm X of medicine. He's an incredible spirit. He's a surgeon. He's also an intensive care physician.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a fighter for the people.
Yes.
Those of you who have not met him, you are missing a great person. So I hope you get a chance to meet him someday.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so currently practicing anesthesia in the area, and also did residency training in rehabilitation medicine, physical medicine rehabilitation, and I grew up originally in New York City. Began to get interested in the health of our people just because I was confronted with on a regular basis the living in New York when I was doing a rehab residency, and the residency for anesthesia was in Baltimore. And most of my time has been spent around Black patients. So my concern has always been, how did we get into this predicament with all of the challenges that we have, as Dr. Yapo has identified and Dr. Reggie has identified. Robinson, how do we get into this predicament and how can we get out of it? we coalesced Baba Rasafiq, Baba Atiba, several more of us coalesced, Brother Tom Porter, and we used to meet at Rap Incorporated. I think this might be 2005, 2006. We got started, and it was around the time of the death of Kamal Robinson, who taught at Roots. And Kamal Robinson died from something preventable, and we all started to be concerned about prevention. And it ended up being kind of like something that we decided, let's do some conferences. So we might have done about 5 conferences over the last several years. The last one we did was in Baltimore with Dr. Ray Winbush and the Institute of Urban Research. We had done conferences at Howard University Hospital Auditorium. We also done conferences at Howard University. And, you know, I've done talks for years at a range of places, Thurgood Marshall, Sankofa, Umoja House, Howard University, etc. So that's kind of the bio. And I guess I can get started, Bobby Mama?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So this is a talk that I've been nurturing for a couple of years now. And I think I've added a couple of things to it every time I come to it. But the whole notion of optimal health for Black men, for most of us, has been about decreasing risk and having a lifestyle that works. Of course, that's not the whole story. You know, public health is important. Access to healthcare is important, as Dr. Yapo had identified. And we hope to have less need for healthcare. However, those of us who can live a healthy lifestyle, statistically, will have less need of healthcare. So that we all felt was a good place to start. I want to see if we can make this happen. So my first slide is from Carver, and Carver was a genius. We all know he was a gentleman who his genius saved the economy of the South at one point when he taught about crop rotation. But one of his statements was that the highest form of knowledge is in recognizing the interrelationship between things. And I say that to say, because what I'm going to talk about today, we all know diet, exercise, preventive lifestyle is going to get you a long way. And it'll help with cancer. It'll help with mental illness. It'll help with cardiovascular disease and everything that most of the things that we are dying from or suffering from. Frantz Fanon, our esteemed psychiatrist, was from Martinique, and his famous books, Black Skin, White Mask, Wretched of the Earth, A Dying Colonialism. He was talking about how, you know, psychiatry and mental illness for the colonized and the enslaved was different. And here he talks about, you know, when they are presented with evidence that works against their beliefs, the new evidence cannot be accepted, and it makes somebody uncomfortable and causes cognitive dissonance. So people end up in denial if some information comes at them that shakes them out of what they want to believe. And that's, you know, a part of being colonized, having your mind colonized for a long time. You're used to thinking a certain way. One of the books that I've read recently by a scholar from Ghana, Nana Nketsi, it talks about culture not just being, you know, the external manifestations, but culture, it has to do with the structure of your thinking and how you approach your life and how you think about your life and the issues around you. So Fanon was a very important person. And this is a book that I had read, and I just want to identify the issue of one thing that white world does to us is they replace facts with beliefs and have us to buy into those beliefs. So that's something we have to kind of really work against. Dr. Chisel was one of my jegnas, and he was the first person to talk about optimal health that I knew of. He was a close friend of Dick Gregory and Brother Bay, and he was the first one to start bringing the whole notion of lifestyle and healthy lifestyle to the National Medical Association. At first, when he started doing this, it was unheard of. Nobody was coming to his presentations. By the time he, was, doing this over like a 20-year span of time, he started to attract hundreds to his conferences, his meetings. So, I learned a lot from him. This is Eshe. Bernal, who was a physical medicine rehabilitation doc, has also been committed to this kind of work for a long time. She's presently in New York, Pennsylvania. Good friend of mine. David Williams is a sociologist based out of University of Michigan. He's a Jamaican ancestry. He's a prolific author, and he had two things that identify from his vantage point. He's done lots of research, but that 200 Black folks are dying each day who wouldn't. Their health status was the same as that of white America. So let that sink in a little bit. And he thinks that a lot of it would be reversed if we had residential equality. So we talk about healthy lifestyle that can prevent a range of illnesses, cardiovascular heart disease being, the one that we die from the most. And I think that health literacy is important, meaning, do you really understand how your body functions and how to prevent from getting chronic illness? We don't want chronic illness. And all of these illnesses start small. So if they start small, they can be caught early, and their dangerous trajectory can be reversed. And I include here risky behaviors, of course, among not just adults, but of course among our youth. Going through some of our favorite people who perished because of preventable illness. Damu Smith, a dear friend of ours, environmental justice activist. He was a colon cancer victim, and colon cancer is preventable with regular checkups and colonoscopies. Unfortunately, Damu Smith's father had colon cancer. So if somebody in your family has colon cancer, like your first degree relative, like your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, you should get tested very early. He did not. He was on a trip on some of his work in Egypt, and he passed out because he got anemic because he was bleeding so much. And by the time they got to him, it was too late. This is about pollution. Just I put this in here that pollution can have lots of bad effects. We know about lead, and they have an article here, and I haven't followed up on this one, but it can look to lead to intellectual impairment if you have lead and manganese that are in our water systems and just being around us. Another, my physician, Dr. Marshall, also died from colon cancer. He was a great physician, real humanitarian. This is a slide that I've used for a long time. I used to have Obama in here, but I took Obama out.
Is that right?
That's right. I took him out.
I wonder why.
He had to go.
We know why.
You know why. So anyway, this identifying here that Black men's health is worse than white folks' health for a range of issues: heart disease, stroke, cancer, asthma, influenza, pneumonia, HIV, AIDS, homicide, diabetes. All of these things we know. A dear friend of all of us, Brother Bay, prostate cancer is treatable if caught early. You can live a good life. You can live a full life. And the same thing, but he chose not to get his prostate checked early, and he suffered as a result of it. So my point, of course, has always been we need the best of both. We need the best of what the Western medicine can give. We need the best of what might be called alternative or holistic medicine can give. We need the best of both.
Yes.
And we need to respect each of them. And this is from Bay. Your God will forgive you for what you do to your body, but your body won't. I thought that was real clever. Leading causes of death. Keep this in mind. Heart disease is first, but heart and cardiovascular disease includes stroke and also includes renal disease. And you can actually make a case that diabetes impacts renal disease, impacts cardiovascular disease a lot too. But anyway, most of us are going to die from heart disease. That's just a statistic. Here's Brother Hodari, another prostate cancer victim. And I'm moving this a little too fast. DC has had low life expectancy, and the number that identifies DC has to like 71 years, 72 years, I should say. And that's men and women. Men live a shorter time than women. I think we all know that. Some would say a long time ago that because women had estrogen, it was heart protective. And I think that women have other ways of coping that sometimes the men don't. another dear friend of mine, Joe Wyndham. He was a very dear friend of mine, prostate cancer victim, brilliant history professor at Nova. Life expectancy gaps, this hasn't changed much. Now, white males are dying earlier, and a lot of that has to do with deaths of despair because they're having a hard time because they're losing their jobs in the Midwest, the so-called Rust Belt. And a lot of them are dying early from liver disease from drinking or overdoses from opioids or what have you. So like Yapo said, you know, the country is suffering. Mamadi, liver failure victim, dear friend of all of us, musician, composer, scholar. And yeah, 2000 Black, 2000,
oh yeah,
2000 Black. This is a slide about something called 8 Americas. And 8 Americas is basically saying that when they broke down statistics of different living conditions, urban black folks were dying the youngest, and urban young brothers were dying the youngest about everybody, with the only exception maybe Native Americans on the reservation. Difference between the young urban brothers, they were dying like age 59 average, you know, who are in high crime areas, high stress areas. And the longest living folks, if I remember correctly, were like Japanese descendant women who were living into their 90s. So there was literally like almost like a 40-year difference. 40 years of life. Kamal Robinson, renal failure victim. Why do I put him here? Renal failure for most of us is because of untreated hypertension. So if you have hypertension, you really got to get it treated so you don't die too soon. And his death sparked a lot of us to get together and start to address this. Dear friend of mine, Harley Little, photographer, another humanitarian, and a stroke victim. Another dear friend of mine, Amos Wilson, psychologist, Pan-African scholar, who many people know very well, stroke victim. Amos Wilson, at some point, others recognize the profitability in driving Black men crazy. James Granger, another friend of mine, dear friend of mine. I'm doing this because it's all personal. And this is a lecturer and an author who was an economist, historian, who was very clear about a lot of things. And he helped a lot of people. He was very close to Ambrose Lane, as a matter of fact. And we used to sponsor lectures with him and Ambrose over the years. Brilliant economist, brilliant brother. Kwesi Ronald Harris, a friend of Tony Browder's and myself. He used to lecture for us about the ills of smoking. He would go through how many people inside of our, you know, cultural community, Lou Rawls and folks along that trajectory were dying because of smoking. And he was an expert in showing how smoking advertisers were infiltrating our communities at a high level, especially to get our children hooked early. All right. So again, just some stats. Our folks are dying early, urban areas. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Foucault, but Foucault was a Congo scholar and writer. And Foucault had a phrase that plays out for us. He says that these cities are not life-giving for our young men. These cities are not life-giving for our young men. So it's a challenge for us to catch our brothers before they get too far gone. Here's a stat. In some areas, our young men's survival to age 45 is more difficult than the white man's survival to age 65. So it's a crisis. This is about disability, and we have fewer years of life, of healthy life, non-disabled life. 3 times more likely. We have the same prevalence of disability at age 20 that whites do at age 50. So disability is a big problem. And that's another part of our overall health. Children, early risk of dying, a lot of excess deaths. So, you know, a lot of our excess deaths are due to circulatory disease, cancer, and AIDS in some locations. AIDS is not as big an issue right now, but the issue that I talked of earlier had to do with Carver identifying, knowing the relationship between things. So if you take care of your blood pressure, you'll have less incidence of stroke, less incidence of heart disease, less incidence of kidney failure. This is kind of some stuff that we should have in our children's understanding at an early age. And most of our families have somebody with one or all of these: stroke, on dialysis, heart disease of some sort, hypertension for sure. Cholesterol gets in the way, causes our arteries to start clogging up over time, early first decade of life. Now, I had a dear friend who died young also. His name was Cleveland Moore. He was a brother from Louisiana, brilliant pediatrician. And in the 80s, we started doing these talks in New York. And he said that when they would do autopsies on babies who died, who were very, very young, you would start to see signs of impairment early on in life in children, you know, if they had, you know, the wrong diet, lifestyle, what have you. But, you know, it wasn't a problem because look how wide your arteries are when you're young. But you start getting older, it gets to be this, and this would be a clot or a ruptured plaque. And that is a word here, endothelial. Endothelial is the inner lining of the arteries or blood vessels. And it's a very active tissue. It's not like a pipe, like a lead pipe. It's very active and lets processes come in and out, but it can get inflamed and irritated and chronically irritated, and then you lead to this. So this kind of damage can happen in your heart and cause a heart attack. It'll happen in your brain and cause a stroke. It'll cause something in your legs and cause you to have a clot that might cause you to lose your limb. And of course, it can cause problems in your kidneys, but mostly heart and brain. And this is a heart attack, again, a clot stops an area. So what is a heart attack actually? It's an interruption of blood flow to an area downstream of a blood vessel. And that area downstream starts to get death or chronic illness. If you get into the hospital early enough and you have a good enough hospital, you can get this clot. You can get this clot taken care of and open that up. It's usually a challenge, and you have to be at the right place at the right time. Most folks don't make it because it's just, you know, timing. But if you can get to the hospital inside of, let's say, about an hour, and to get this taken care of within like about 3 hours with the right situation, this can get broken up, and you can do okay. Your heart muscle will not die. Once this heart muscle dies, it doesn't come back. It just becomes scar. It could be small piece or it could be large, depending on how large the clot is and where it gets lodged. And I'm showing this. My son is a filmmaker, and he did a book and a story about a fighting style in the joint called 52. But this is just a brother with a big, strong back, a lot of muscles. Now, I'm putting this in here because a place where you don't want too much muscle is in your heart muscle. And I'll show you some pictures of that. So this is your normal heart muscle on this side. This is how thick it is. When it gets thicker over here, the left ventricle, which is carrying the blood out, it gets narrow. See how this space is compared to how narrow this space is. So that ends up, now, why do you get, they call it hypertrophy, increase in size, what hypertrophy means, or the muscle. Why do you get that? Because the heart is pumping against pressure, right? What happens if you step on a water hose and the water hose is going? Well, there's back pressure. This constant back pressure, the heart responds by trying to push harder against it and push that blood out. Over the years, this muscle starts to get larger and this space gets smaller. So the amount of blood going out gets smaller. The amount of blood going to the muscles in your heart, every place else gets smaller. And it just takes a toll on you over time. This is another instance, the same image, left ventricle size here, smaller here because the ventricle is hypertrophy. This is how most of our family members die, because of this constant blood pressure that's not treated. This is the echocardiogram. That's the normal size. This is the smaller size. Hypertrophy, left ventricular hypertension, and that causes the left ventricle, which supplies most of the blood body with oxygen, with blood that carries oxygen and nutrition, to have a smaller ejection fraction. How much of your heart muscle contracts and pushes out blood is impacted by this. All right, let's move. So this is how the heart looks normal. That's called a larger heart, as you can see. That's not healthy. That's not healthy. Now, there's a physiological hypertrophy. It happens with exercise. All right, now, exercise. Somebody like Rastafiq who runs when it's 20 degrees outside, his heart's gonna look like this, right? Got a good muscle, lots of blood flow. See this? It increases. And during pregnancy, this is what's called pathologic. Look how small this is compared to how large this is. Okay. So you know, those long distance runners and exercisers have a physiological hypertrophy of their heart. That is good. All right, turning to strokes. There's a place in the country called the stroke belt. Guess what? It's where most of us live. These states in the Black Belt South, a lot of these states are Republic of New Africa states, but also Illinois here. And I guess this is Tennessee and Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. This is the stroke belt. What does the stroke belt mean? The highest percentage of strokes in the country, maybe in the world, maybe in the world. Preventable. Why is it preventable? Because these get built up the same way as in the heart. Cholesterol plaques get built up, it can rupture. This can rupture and go into your brain and cause you to have a stroke. Carotid artery, if y'all can touch your neck, that's where the carotid artery is. That's that blood supply to your brain. Carotid artery, very important artery. So hemorrhagic stroke, you can have a bleeding stroke. That's when you just have, hypertension untreated usually, and it causes a rupture of a blood vessel here, or ischemic stroke, which means the place similar to a heart attack downstream does not get blood supply, and you get this area that dies. They can also do some reversal of this in the emergent circumstances at the hospital. You got to get there in a certain enough time. If you have a family member who has garbled speech and they're not making sense, call 911 right away. Don't leave them, and see if you can get them to the hospital as soon as possible, because if they're having a stroke, this can be reversed. It does take a very coordinated effort and a good hospital. Kidney failure looks like the same as the issue related to strokes. Same Black Belt South, where we are, right? This is Carver, the interrelationship between things. Cardiovascular disease is our #1 killer. That includes heart disease, strokes, kidney failure, and did I mention peripheral vascular disease, which means what Dr. Yapa was talking about. You see this is amputation here. Same problem. And this is showing that also the relationship between cardiovascular disease and diabetes. Diabetes, when I was in school, was known as impairment of the small blood vessels in the body. Those going to your toes, to your feet. Any of you have family members, if they get diabetes, they got to have their toenails cut by a podiatrist or someone who knows what they're doing. If they get small cuts, they may not heal because their small blood vessels are not providing nutrients that well. They need to be really cared for. But you can see what I'm talking about here, right? And you see the supersize me that's going on here in McDonald's.
Oh, wow.
A
lot of sweet drinks, Too
much sugar.
Too much sugar. Going through prostate pretty quickly, and that, here's your prostate for men. We need to get this checked on a regular basis. We have a higher incidence, 248 per 100,000, 156. Rectal exam and PSA at age 45. Colon cancer screening at age 45 also, very important. Something to keep in mind. And I think that one of the biggest problems is trust in the healthcare system. I've got friends who are actually healthcare providers who have a great distrust of the healthcare system. We all understand why. Rectal exam with PSA as prevention. All right, risky behaviors and prevention. We got our young men hyper incarcerated. We know that mass incarceration can cause chronic illness. There's always been an inverse relationship between employment and violence. Junk food is a problem. Look at this. Marketing of junk food to our youth, 135 million. We got a lot to be concerned about in terms of getting our diet and stuff correct, because you get these issues early. And PTSD is real. This one here is real. The rates of PTSD we see are as high or higher than Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam veterans. That's in our neighborhoods. But we got to find times to work with our young people. Baba Chad, who's on the call right now, and me and Baba Ize, some other brothers, and had a youth program that focused on Saturday Academy, doing some conversation with young folks. I know all of the members in UBC are doing the same thing. We need to do a lot more of that to catch these young brothers and young sisters early. Concept that we're going to talk about just briefly called allostatic load. It's a term that you might want to know about. And we talked about this before, but it's basically chronic stress and how it impairs physiology. What is physiology? Physiology is the interaction between different organ systems. How does the heart and lungs work together? How does the heart, lungs, and brain work together? All these different systems work together with the endocrine system and the immune system. And it has, and it's basically stress, the body's stress response. So the stress response runs amok, and I'll show you a picture of that. So this is the dynamic. All of these different things are identified as causing either adaptation or a hyper response, hypervigilant response that those of us who are always worried about white supremacy and white violence and vigilance are always under this problem with. So if you have a response to a problem, your body's physiological response is your heart starts to beat faster, you can get ready to run, you start breathing faster, the body secretes steroids to get you going. And at a certain point, when the threat disappears, all of those responses kind of recede down to here. Allostatic load means you have the response to the stress and there's no recovery. And that's what the stress does to a lot of us living in Babylon. Allostatic load, talking about multi-system dysfunction and downstream physiological systems. And again, a couple more things about allostatic load, and gonna move forward with this a little bit. Childhood poverty and adult psychological well-being. We got to catch our young people early. And of course, all of us want to do this. It's a huge challenge because there's so many children who have so much need. But any place that we can apply our wellness to young people, as I know UBC has been doing for a long time, trying to get to young people, especially people with Baba Tyrone out in Southeast, and trying to work on violence prevention. These are all extremely important pieces related to allostatic load. Stress, poverty, and racism raise the risk for Alzheimer's disease. We actually can lose brain function earlier, right? So all of these things are serious business. And interesting piece here that Africans who come here as immigrants don't seem to have the same problems if they don't assimilate into United States unhealthy behaviors. But the longer you stay, the more challenges you might have. And we can see that, we can see some of the young brothers who get caught up and get caught up. Native Americans, of course, have a hard time with it. And I introduced the concept of the importance of mature menace prevention. But something that UBC has been at the forefront of for a long time, trying to help our men to mature, trying to be models of maturity, trying to do things that are culturally relevant on a regular basis. So I applaud UBC. What is this about? There's Malcolm, and of course I got some elephants here. What the elephant piece is about, many of you might know about this. There was a study done where I think in Kenya or Tanzania, or maybe a game reserve between both, the adult male elephants were taken away, and the herd was left with the leadership of the young adolescent elephants. The young adolescent elephants was going buck wild and hurting each other, tearing the forest up. They were crushing other animals. And what the solution was to bring back the adult males, and it made everything much better. So I use that as an example of how powerful it is for us. And of course, Malcolm had a life and he made a big change. So I say, don't give up. A little bit about oxidant stress. Oxidant stress happens. Everybody's heard about antioxidants. Well, antioxidants help us to fight illness. What do they fight? They fight too much oxygen at the cellular level, and they can cause cellular problems. And it can deal with the heart, kidney, vascular, which is your blood vessels. And It can go to atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries, heart attack, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of these things that contribute to our aging too rapidly. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to get rid of that. So exercise seems like it's clearly a solution. And a couple of more pieces and we'll be rolling up. Weathering is a new book. I encourage you all to try to take a look at it. This is a woman who's been studying the stuff about allostatic load for a long time, extraordinary stress of ordinary life in an unjust society. And she speaks a lot of times about what we go through. Her name is Geronimus. I've been quoting her stuff for a little while now. And she and the guy who discovered allostatic load are important to our understanding of what we're facing. And it's well done. It's a good book. She spends a lot of time on the different manifestations of what the stress does to us. Her research shows that pervasive racist and classist ideologies activate biological processes. Those processes we talked before that wear out our physical and mental health and in all economic classes. And so it can be chronically activating that can lead to cardiovascular disease, cancer, accelerated aging. I'm not trying to hear that. Weaken our immune system and threatening our vulnerabilities, life-threatening vulnerabilities. Impacting our systems, our body systems, early disability, increased mortality. Her take on the increased mortality from COVID, in addition to us being on the front line, she identifies that. Her take on that is partially that we have more chronic illness, more chronic inflammation inside those blood vessels. We have more chronic illness and more chronic inflammation that made us more of a setup, as well as being the necessary workers. And mental health impairments is, of course, a big one that we don't look at enough. So this is ACE inhibitors and helping our function. This is what your cardiologist or doctor would prescribe. Antioxidants are important. And this is a study that talks about a low-fat, high-fiber diet, and exercise actually makes the progression of atherosclerosis starts to decrease. Diet as prevention, solution to prevent cancer and cardiovascular disease. Here's one that I just recently found out, and I think that everybody should take note of this one because I'm perplexed as to why this is not being promoted a lot more. I talked to a guy I work with. He's a gastroenterology guy, and he says it's been proven that high fiber diets versus low fiber diets will reduce your risk of dying. How you like that?
All right, high fiber.
High fiber diets. And for older people who ate fiber-rich diets, 80% more likely to live longer and stay healthy than those who didn't. This is an important piece, and it's not being spread widely enough. And I don't know why the public health departments are not saying this. I don't know why every doctor's office doesn't say this. Folks get caught up, but I mean, this is very important information for us to know. There's something that we can actively do. High fiber diets, exercise, positive outlook and all that kind of stuff. Diet prevention. This is all about fiber, reducing cholesterol, promoting a healthy weight, preventing constipation, managing blood sugar, reducing cancer risk. All of those things come with a high fiber diet. For weight loss, the recommended daily diet is 25 grams for women, 38 grams, but most of us don't eat this much fiber. Here is a online piece, but there's a lot of online stuff about it. All you got to do is put in fiber and longevity, and you'll get some stuff. Fitness prevention, and I think that most of us know about this pretty well. I think a lot of us prefer to have sports where we're kind of in with people, some kind of collaboration. It could be walking, it could be cycling, it could be, anything that's not going to hurt you. But of course, the importance of the group socialization, and I think that would help go a long way to prevent the loneliness. There's a piece that another guy I work with says that he saw a study. I don't have the study in front of me. I should have looked for it. That folks who play tennis when they get older seem to do better and live longer, and mostly not because of the exercise, only because of the socialization as well. Fitness. Jack Johnson stayed fit. He had a difficult challenge. Spirituality is critical, and we can never underestimate that. And a piece called John Henryism, and that has to do with high levels of trying to succeed against difficult odds can also be a risk. So, you know, John Henry he beat the, in the saga, he beat the automation, but he died as a result of it. And that's pretty much it. A couple of pictures. We want healthy families. A couple of pictures of family, my grandson, family. And these two people are in large responsible for me being a radical thinker. Two of my favorite people in the whole world.
Giants.
Two giants. Marimba is still rocking. She has a journal called The African World, and I get copies of it. I'll try to get copies to people. And she's only about sovereignty. You ain't talking sovereignty, she ain't got no time for your conversation. That's it. That's it for the conversation, people. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for the invitation to talk.
Baba Juawa, thank you for this pertinent information, brother. I was taking notes as you were doing your presentation. And is it possible to get a copy of this presentation?
I'll get it to you. I'll definitely get it to you.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can email it to Kelechi and to you. See
yes.
If not, I'll bring it on a thumb drive over. I'll bring it.
We shoot it out. Right. And you inspired me too, man, because I know tomorrow morning I got to get up and get going, you know. And we know that of all those ailments that you mentioned, diabetes, heart disease, and heart disease is the number1 killer, not only in the United States, but around the world. Heart disease is #1. And strokes, all of that. And the bottom line to me, from what I've been researching, is that high blood pressure, hypertension seems to be one of the biggest culprits of forming these diseases. So hypertension, lowering your blood pressure is critical to good health.
They used to call it the silent killer. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember the silent killer, hypertension. And you know, I'm gonna read another article from the Washington Post. I hope y'all don't mind me reading from the Washington Post, but this was a nice article they had on Double Dutch in yesterday's post. And those of you who know, I've been trying to get Double Dutch incorporated into the community sessions.
Let's see if anybody has any questions for Baba. Just before you read. Let's see if
okay, we're gonna open up the questions after I finish this. It's only reading a couple things and sharing a couple things, and then we'll close it out with the questions and answers. Is that okay? Okay.
I would like to recommend that we follow Baba Kelechi's suggestion and to have the questions and answers first.
At least for Baba Juawa, since he, folks may forget what they're trying to ask.
Because some of what I'm going to say is sort of piggybacking on what he said. So, but it's up to the group, whatever we want to do.
This is Kabibi. I have some questions.
Kabibi!
I've already got it.
Greetings, Mama.
What's up, Kabibi?
Hey.
I'm gonna hang with y'all. Baba Juawa, first of all, I'd like to say Asante Sana to you for your work in the community all these decades. And the fact that even when we have been out in the streets with our activism, you have always ensured that there was some sort of ambulance support in the event of any kind of issues would arise. I will never forget those things. I have two personal issues in my family that are in keeping with what you just presented. My brother, who was part of that silent generation, died in 2021. He was one of those, I had not ever heard the term John Henryism, trying his best to measure up to white folks. And I had gotten him to the point where he really was focusing on his diet, and he was doing quite well. It wasn't until when he reached an age of about 74, where he felt like he had not achieved his goal of having the same level of wealth as the white folks that he had worked with so closely, and knew that intellectually he was their superior. that is when he developed the Alzheimer's. And it says if it was an emotional response to block out the failure. And I wanted to get your response to that, number one. Number two, I just lost another male relative, 81. There's this notion about, quote, playing the hand one is dealt. And that seems to prevent our warriors from seeing about themselves and taking care of themselves, as if to do so is accepting a level of vulnerability that seems to prevent, or the feeling that they will prevent you from being as vigilant as you need to be as a warrior. And I think that sometimes that presents our men with challenges about taking care of themselves as they should. If you could respond to those things.
Give me, and encapsulate the second one real quick for me again, sister.
Playing the hand you're dealt.
Playing the hand you're dealt.
Feeling that to step outside and seek help is accepting a level of vulnerability that sometimes feels like you will not be able to confront the ills of this society as we should. As warriors.
Yeah, both great questions. So let's do the second one first. Vulnerability and stepping out there and not feeling adequate. You know, our psychologists and psychiatrists, folks in ABSI and Dr. Welsing and Fanon and those folks identified several things that would kind of be problematic for the colonized mind and for the mind of those who had been enslaved previously, lived under Jim Crow, apartheid, and things like that. And these kind of things are what you're talking about with vulnerability and playing the hand you're dealt, sometimes have to do with imbibing the cultural cultural baggage or the language of the oppressor, and figuring that that is what you need to be and to do, and that if you don't measure up to what they've got, then you're either unable to look at yourself in a positive light, and or you're unable to seek help managing it. A lot of our folks really could benefit from the camaraderie, if not some counseling. And I know that that's always a very challenging piece for most of our people. It's getting easier now, I think, maybe because we have more folks acknowledging that depression is real, sadness and anxiety is real, and it's not a sign of weakness. I know I have to go against family members and say, if you had untreated diabetes, you have no problem going to get help for it. But somehow, because you have chronic, anxiety, panic attacks, what have you, you don't want to see anybody about that. So that's kind of the vulnerability piece. And I think that goes also to the Tuskegee experiment and just fear of a system. And the system has not been kind, and it's been duplicitous most of the time. As far as the economic piece, I get it. And I get it that, especially if you feel that you have been passed over for promotions, passed over for opportunities, disrespected, and chronically impaired, some of that stuff goes back to what we had a couple of slides back, that, these stressors, if untreated, can lead you to Alzheimer's and other kinds of neuroendocrine diseases. I use this time to talk about my dad, who had gotten a degree from NYU after the World War II, and got a job in the post office, did okay, advanced a little bit in the post office, but was really frustrated with how he was treated, never talked about it, wouldn't go to get help. My mom got help, he never went and got help. And over time, he developed Alzheimer's and dementia, Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. So I understand and I get it. And I think it has to do with, whether, I think women might be easier to tell a brother that, hey, it's not weakness. Women have to go to the doctor more than men anyway, and they do. And it's not a sign of weakness to try to get somebody to talk to about these things and try to make yourself a little bit less self-critical. I hope that helps, Sister Taibbi, my Sister Kehembe, Sister Kabibi, I'm sorry.
Asante Baba.
I think Baba Chad had his hand up, and then Brother Cecile had his hand up. Cecil.
Baba Kazi.
Baba Kazi.
It's both.
I think it's frozen. Is it frozen?
Am I frozen?
Okay, you were for a second. You good now.
So thank you very much for your talk today, Baba. What do you think about incorporating meditation, mindfulness as a way to combat, for lack of a better word, the white domination system that we're under? I was reading a book about combating white supremacy, and surprisingly enough, it said self-care was how we can combat it, and if you told me that 30 years ago, I would have been like, that's crazy. But today I'm seeing a need to incorporate meditation or some kind of mindfulness, or maybe taking baths. As Black men, Black women, self-care is, it's not really frowned upon. But as Black men, what do you think as a strategy? I use mindfulness and meditation, but other strategies so we can help with our hypertension and so our stress levels.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Baba Kazi, and I'm in total agreement. The spirituality piece that we talked about is global. Of course, those of us on this call have a clear understanding of the difference between religion and spirituality. We don't have to go into that, I hope. However, one of the things I think we miss from not really understanding colonialism and slavery at a deep level is how much genius our people did have and how they managed to make it through day to day. Now, Charles Mingus, had a great tune called Wednesday Night Prayer Meeting. Baba Rasifi can probably pull it up for us real quick. Wednesday Night Prayer Meeting was basically identifying what we did on a regular. Sunday was okay, couldn't wait till the next Sunday. We had to get to Wednesday and charge back up. And a lot of that was prayer. One of the things that I had come across years ago, I didn't say it today, but there was a subset of Black men who actually lived longer and healthier lives. And these guys lived into their 80s and did okay. They were folks like deacons at the church, cats who were committed to spirituality in whatever the case that was, parentheses, and also committed to, I guess, their church and their community and their family in that kind of way, So those of us who can commit to a small group or even a regular meditation for yourself, I'm all in favor of that. And, meditation can be helped or nurtured with somebody who can help you with it. And there's also books and pamphlets on how to start to get into it. I remember telling my mom about it. She says, but your thoughts, they kind of racing. I say, yeah, that's the purpose, to kind of quiet them thoughts down and get you to slow everything down a little bit. So, I try to meditate as often as I can. I don't do it as often as I should, but I do have an altar and I do pray to my ancestors, burn some incense, give thanks, give gratitude as often as possible. And for those of us who, believe in our ancestors communicating with us on a regular basis in some form or fashion, that's not foreign. You may have to convince some other people that that's real, but those of us whose ancestors go back to the continent, of course, most of us on this call can admit that we've been visited by our ancestors more than once or twice, and we don't have to feel crazy about that. That's not spookism. That's just real. So that connection is important. And I think those of us who can nurture it at a high level will probably live longer, have a healthier life, and also be a good example for others. Baba Kazi, was that okay? All right. Brother Cecil.
If I could, please, let me kind of parlay into what Baba Jawara was saying. with respect to meditation, mindfulness, spirituality. There was a great musician by the name of Albert Ayler, and he talked about music as the healing force of the universe. And of course, we know the power of John Coltrane's music. He said, "You want my music to be a force for good, not for bad things, but for good things, to uplift people, to enlighten people, to put people on another spiritual level." And so I would agree, meditation is key. And he and Alice used to meditate together. They used their music as a medium to take people outside of themselves, out into the universe, into the multi atmospheres, such as Sun Ra. Sun Ra was also on that level. So yes, I think it's certainly something that we can look forward to in combination with good health, meditation, family, good social relations, and all these things. It's essentially a holistic approach to life. And earlier, Baba Jawara talked about Brother Dr. John Chazelle, his Jegna, and he has a powerful book out that I would recommend all of you try to find, called Pyramids of Power, an African-centered approach to optimal health. And I'll just show you the cover of it. It's a beautiful piece with the Ankh and the pyramid. He talks about pyramid power. He talks about economic and the spiritual aspects of our existence. So I think all of these things will be helpful in our search for a more holistic way of living. Sante Sana.
Baba Rastafi. All right, man.
Yes, sir, Baba.
I can't follow that. I can't follow that, man. I can't follow that, man.
I'm following you, Baba.
Maybe
you know how we roll, man.
Maybe put on some of that Albert Ayler or some training. We can just roll. Brother Cecil.
Clear the air, man.
Brother Cecil.
Awesome. Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm so grateful because this conversation is not just kind of important, it's essential for our community. And I was invited to share some information at the end about solutions, but unfortunately I have to leave at 8:30, but I wanted to ask a couple questions before I went. And I wanted to say that I wish there were more people here listening to this conversation. I wish there were more of us here. I wish more of us were here to be able to discuss this, because as we all know, it's so vital. It's in this current time and place where we are that we speak about this and we talk about these things. And so, first of all, you've reignited in me. I'm on my health and wellness journey, but I want to appreciate you, Baba Jawara Hunter. Thank you so much for reigniting in me, even though I'm passionate about being healthy, about going that extra step and being more intentional about the choices I'm making, because you really dropped some powerful knowledge tonight, and I'm so appreciative of it. As someone that's been dealing with high blood pressure for many years and has been using plant-based solutions as well as other things to kind of help with it, I just appreciate you kind of really opening my eyes to more of an understanding of what it is and the impact it has on the body. So I'll specifically ask a question that deals with my personal health, because I'll be a little selfish. So when you mentioned the thickening of the muscles of the heart, is that something that is reversible based upon diet or exercise or otherwise? Or is that something that once that happens, there's no way of addressing that? That's the first question.
First question, yes, it is reversible. And there's also a piece that's attached to that, and that is that many people who go for long periods of time with bad arteries in their heart have to get bypass surgery. And it's been identified with a program that was based in California that was actually founded by a sister. She was married to a white boy, and the white boy stole it and ran with it. But that if you change to a plant-based diet and got exercise, meditation, wellness training, all that kind of stuff like that, you could actually get people who are getting ready to have bypass surgery, take them off of the bypass list, and they can do fine. So yes, thickening of the muscle of the heart can be improved with these kind of things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Is that from the same the author Change or Die? Is that program?
Man, what's his name? His name, I'm blank on his name right now.
It's all good with it. That I heard the same, you know, we do a daily book club, and we talked about that very same concept where that changing your diet and those things were able to reverse severely, you know, severe heart, you know, folks that had severe heart disease. So yeah.
One of the slides that we showed, they had a small group of men who ate right and did everything right, and the atherosclerosis got better, you know, their fitness got better, and you know, the blood pressure got better, and things get better when you make the change. It's like you stop smoking and the lungs will start healing themselves. You know, it's like stop doing the badness.
Yeah. Awesome. That's fantastic. Again, messages that folks need to hear. You know, this is we just shot it from a mountaintop, and I appreciate you leading that charge. And second question is, you know, in your opinion, you know, obviously we're having forums like this, we're having these conversations, and you know, part of the reason why we're passionate about what we're doing in regards to helping come with solutions. What are some other recommendations you have for those that are here to be able to get these messages out more consistently? Because, you know, each person here is a leader in their own right. They have the ability to be able to impact others. So what are some suggestions you can give? Obviously we have forums like this, but what are some things that you found that have been helpful to help people to hear and understand these messages that you're sharing today? So that's my final question.
Yeah, good question. You know, word of mouth is important, and also being an active advocate is important. If you could get like a walk-in club or some kind of a group together that wants to, you know, get together, there's conversation, there's socialization, there's walking, exercise, and diet and exercise can be topics. It could be, you know, talking about whatever you want to talk about, but those things are important. I think, to me, one thing that came out of this research for this talk was that fiber piece. I didn't know that until about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, you know, that fiber was all of that. And it's kind of like, why shouldn't we know that? Why isn't every doctor's office got that on the wall? How high levels of fiber will make you live long? And I keep asking people, did you know this? No. So I think that's important too. And also modeling. You know, I think the most important thing for us is to model. If your children see you reading books, they're going to read books. If your children see you not smoking, they're probably not going to smoke. If they do smoke, they'll stop soon. If they see you abusing your body, they'll abuse their body. If they see you not abusing your body, they probably won't. So modeling is important, as opposed to your family members, because your family members are watching you. I know people have been watching Rasaviq and his family for a long time. Rasaviq go to family reunion and they put some fat back in the greens. Rasaviq don't eat it. Rasaviq bring his own greens and whatnot. But now, years later, they probably say, Rasaviq, you bringing them greens with you, man? We want to eat some of that. You know, it's time. And like all of us know and agree that, you know, you have to model Black folks for a long time, because we have a lot of distrust. You got to be honest for a long time. You got to be forthright for a long time. You got to, you know, tell the truth when you made a mistake, all that kind of stuff, so that people will look at you and say, okay, that's a trust person right there. I can trust that person's, you know, insights and wisdom. So that's all what UBC is about for a long time. And I'm trying to continue to, you know, kind of be a part of that in my own life.
Thank you so very much. I really appreciate all the information and share. And I know my one of my partners is going to share more information about some solutions that we recommend that are in alignment. And I look forward to partnering, doing more things with you all, because this was remarkable. It really was exciting. So thank you so much. God bless. Blessings to everyone. Take care. Have a good evening.
I hope you get a chance to meet Yapo one day, because you ain't
I look forward to.
You ain't
I would
seen
love
nothing.
to.
You ain't seen nothing. That's a bad brother there. Let me tell you.
Man.
Okay.
Yeah, I would love to be here longer, but unfortunately I have another engagement. So blessings, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, good brother.
Bobby Mama, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're trying to say something.
No, when everybody's finished, I was wait till any questions. But let me say this real quick. Some of the things I was going to share. Speaking of high blood pressure, this article I was telling y'all in the Washington Post, it was the sisters that, you know, I remember growing up in the farms, man. Everybody was, all the young ladies, young girls were double dutching. And I know, Jawara, you come out of Harlem. They say that's where it started in New York. They say with the Dutch, I don't know, but you know, that's how the term came about. But now some older sisters are getting involved in double Dutch. You know, they're coming back. They used to do it when they were young. And this particular sister, her name was Sherry Ramsey, and she's a kindergarten teacher who lived in Upper Marlboro, joined a group of double Dutch a year ago. And she recently went to her annual physical, to have her annual physical. And my doctor said, guess what? I don't think you're going to be taking any more blood pressure medication. What have you been doing this past year? She's been doing this double Dutch now this past year. Ramsey, she told him she's been jumping double Dutch. And he said, well, you keep it up. And I thought that was real nice about the way it was. The doctor came off and said, keep it up, you know, because, you know, sometimes people might think something else might be going on. But exercise, and the key to exercise is consistency. I found that out. I know that's one of my problems. I'm not consistent with my exercise. I know for a fact that it helps all areas of my life. When I do exercise, when I run, I jog, I sprint, I do weights and resistance, I do all the, you know, exercise needed for good health. Another thing I wanted to mention tonight was that teaching this to our children, teaching first aid to our children so they could help us if anybody in the family is suffering a stroke or heart attack or first aid. You know, our children need to know what to do, because sometimes you and the child might be, or the children might be there by yourself, and you an adult and you suffering a stroke, they have to know what to do, you know, as quick as possible. So that's one thing I would recommend, that we, you know, teach all of these techniques, first aid techniques, to our children. And another thing I was going to mention is the good health includes periodic health screenings. And you mentioned that earlier in your presentation. And Baba Yapo encouraged me to talk about this as well. Prostate cancer, we screen for high cholesterol, A1C, breast cancer, vital organs, dental. You know, these are periodic screenings, so, you know, so they can, you know, if they catch something early, you have a better chance of surviving. Yes. And the last thing I want to mention is about gun violence. I got this report in 2021 called Gun Violence Problem Analysis Summary Report by the National Institute for Criminal Justice Reform. And, you know, I've always wondered, you know, if we had a list of 100, what would be the major causes of all of this violence? Right before we came on, I was watching the news, and they had, right on 6th and Chesapeake Street Southeast, they had 4 brothers. 2 of them jumped out of a car, a van, a red van, and they had, looked like they had rifles. And they ran up to the sister and shot, I don't know, they didn't show them actually shooting her, but they cut it, you know, but that's what happened. And they ran back in the car and they shot and killed her. And I think they shot another brother, but I don't know his condition. But violence is and that's stress. And I know stress is a killer as well. And on page 9 in this report, they talked about some of the things that, you know, driving all of this violence. I'm gonna read a couple paragraphs here. While the majority of people involved in shootings as victims or suspects are members of associates or street gangs or street groups / gangs, the motive for the shooting may not be traditional gang war. Often shootings are precipitated by petty conflict over a young woman, a simple argument, or now a ubiquitous social slight, exacerbating the social media incited shootings are music videos that promote certain neighborhoods or cliques that also diss other crews or individuals, sparking a series of comments and competing videos that escalate into shooting. And he talked about this YouTube video called Deadly War in DC, Simple City versus 37th. That's 37th Street in Southeast, Simple City, or Benning Road area over there. And they also go on to say that at least 91 groups were identified among the victims or suspects of homicides and non-fatal shootings that took place from 2019 to 2020. And 19 groups were involved in 3 or more non-fatal shootings or homicides. Across homicides, 5 core groups emerged as responsible for the most violent incidents. Most groups, gangs in the District of Columbia are heavily engaged in the narcotic sales. Many conflicts between groups and group members may evolve from drug-related disputes and social media conflicts. And this is, I think, a real comprehensive report. I don't know if anybody ever seen this report. Came out in 2021. A brother, I remember the brother's last name is Muhammad, who helped put this report together. But gun violence and it's getting out of hand, and I know a lot of our people, even if you're not a victim, you're suffering because you're stressed out. You don't go outside. You don't get fresh air. You don't get sunshine. And this is a problem too. So I would just wanted to share that as well.
Well, thank you for that, brother. I would respond in a couple of different ways. I think that Fanon talked about the psychology of the oppressed and how that plays out in our lives. And gangs and us attacking each other is, a part of that psychology of oppression. We see each other as, the enemy versus seeing our real enemy as the enemy, and that continues to work. Fanon observed that in the Algerians when he was working with the Algerians, and when the Algerians started stopping hurting each other and started focusing, then Algeria got liberated, and they said that's how it happens. There's a lot at stake, of course, and we all kind of know that much of what we see. Like I know some of the Chicago people were saying all of a sudden these guns just show up in the neighborhood, and we don't manufacture guns, we don't have big transportation systems to bring them in, but yet and still they come in. Brother Tyrone works hard out there with the youth, and some of this is structural. Some of this, and our children may not see it right away, but and our adults may not see it right away. But before gentrification can happen, they've got to have us hurt each other, and we get rid of their problems for them.
Yes.
And when we're out of the way or just hating each other and causing all kind of grief, then the developers move in and do what they do. I mean, that's one way to look at it. But it also has to do with Native Americans. I mean, Native Americans had problems. They were, convinced to hurt each other and convinced to cause each other harm. And, look what that got us. So, it's an old problem. I don't have the answer to it, but I do know that people like Tyrone been working with youth for a long time. They do have, Marion Barry had something called the Roving Leaders.
Yes.
And Roving Leaders was active in many communities. They would go to rec centers and playgrounds and parks, and they would interface with the young brothers who are out there who might not have a whole lot of, positive men in their lives and uncles, positive role models. And those roving leaders knew how to talk to them. There have also been initiatives in some cities, and I think they tried it. They've been trying it in DC to have older folks who've been incarcerated called on to squash beefs among young people. And they can get to, some of these neighborhoods quicker and get to speak the language that the young brothers, and some of the young brothers, unfortunately, look up to cats who've been incarcerated. But I mean, that's what it is. They know that life real well.
Sure.
And some of those cats have been doing things like that. You and I may go there and have the right message and all, but the delivery ain't right, and we ain't right, and all that kind of stuff ain't right. So it has to do with a coalescing of the right message and the right person who delivers that message to them as well. Plus, there's no jobs programs. There's really no jobs program. I mean, to really employ some of these guys, I'm fuming every day where I go by work sites and I don't see brothers working.
Oh my God.
So I mean, that's real. And who chimed in on that before he died was Ambrose. Ambrose chimed in on that. And he said, those are our jobs. But what they're doing, the developers, they're able to pay short money, get 3 and 4 cats from Salvador or Mexico to work for what one of us would work for. I get it. It's corruption all the way up. I get it. We got to call it what it is. We got to call it and find ways to help the young brothers find some other kind of opportunities. Entrepreneurship, I mean, can work. It doesn't make you rich. And some of that is a problem too. But, there have to be other options for them. And hopefully older guys like us to talk to might help, if we can make ourselves available. And that piece that we tried to do out there in Southeast,
Congress Heights,
Congress Heights, it was a great conversation. It was well done. Not a lot of attendance. And I think that might be something that we got to find a way, that might be more important than the messaging, to find a way to get into the space that those young brothers might occupy for a brief time, for whatever, it could be 15, 20 minutes. How can we get in there and just, talk and shake their hands and say, how you doing? Hope you ain't hurting each other, blah, 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 blah. It's a problem. It's a problem everywhere. I'm in Harlem now. Baba Kazi is from Queens. I mean, all over is gentrification, and all over is the same scenario. South side of Chicago is the same thing. It's no different. It's the same scenario. And some kind of way, we haven't gotten the message to our people yet that this is a setup. And, we've seen it before. So I'm hoping that maybe can encourage us to kind of maybe talk to Tyrone or folks out there to maybe, if they would allow us to come sitting among them, even if it's 4 or 5 of them. I mean, we can sit and talk and see what their thoughts are. Like Freire out of Brazil, Paulo Freire, his book Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he would talk about how important it is. If you're a teacher, you got to be a student also. You got to find out, what those folks you're teaching understand, how they understand it, why they understand it that particular way. You're learning from them as you are also sharing something that you might be able to help them with. And they'll tell you if you're right or not. And they'll also tell you if you're phony, Right. I think there's a sister, Lauren Joyce Bowen, has a hand up.
Yes. Habari, everyone. It's nice to be here. I have 2 comments. What you were just speaking of about being with the youth and the gun violence. I trust that everyone knows about the National Week of Healing. It's Sister Charnel with Bold Yoga in Southeast. They have lots and lots of supporters for August 6th. Is the first day, is Sunday. And then each day they're going to be dealing with violence, whether it's domestic violence or gun violence or sexual abuse. They also will have a day of reentry or police actions. And the last day, that Saturday, is a celebration. So if you go to their website, which is National Week of Healing, NWOH.org. And I want to make sure that's, if someone can pull that up and let me know that I got that correct. I think so. N for national, W for week, of O, healing. And they're going to be dealing with different aspects of violence for that whole week. And evidently, this is my new entry with this group, but evidently they had a session in December, and they said it was very successful. So I will be participating on the Family Day. They wanted to know about co-ops and economics. So I'm waiting to get the information on the exact time and location for our Sunday presentation. So I will definitely let you know, trusting that Appeal can participate in the co-op.
What's the name of it again? The National Week of Healing. What else?
Yeah, that's it, .org. But it's NWOH.org, just those initials. And were you able to pull that up, NWOH.org? Okay, well, I think that's the correct site.
Okay.
All right. And that's one way, so we can, when you talk about getting involved with the youth, I mean, it's going to be full of youth that whole week. I mean, most of the folks on the call who are doing all the work are young folks. It was just wonderful to be around them, seeing all the work that they're doing. That's one thing we can do. Secondly, I wanted to give information about a shared cooperative telemedicine. When you talk about having access, you have people who are underinsured, you have people who are uninsured, and you also have folks like my daughter and her family who pay, monthly for insurance, and then they also have to pay discounts when they go to certain providers, and they also have to pay co-pays when they go. It's just amazing how much insurance is. So in this system that we offer for the shared cooperative telemedicine approach, you can have up to 7 people. They don't have to be family members, can be anyone who is interested in having their own, access to primary care, urgent care, mental health services, life coach, whole range of telemedicine. It's all telemedicine, prescriptions, everything. So when we talk about having access, we need folks who are underinsured and uninsured, to be able to do that. So I'll put my number in the chat if you want more information on that.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
That's excellent. That's excellent. That's excellent. Excellent kind of information that we need to share as widely as we possibly can. And where is the National Week of Healing going to take place? In Southeast?
Yeah, it's at different locations in wards 7 and 8.
Okay.
I know one day it's at Anacostia Park, another day it's at Secret Garden, another day, those are the ones that I recall. But when you go to the site, they have the listing, the flyer has the listing for each day, what the topic is, what the focus is, like they do in stigma, and one day is grief. So they're having a grief doula come, and folks can write letters like to, deceased or folks who have, passed on, as a way for healing. So she's called a grief doula. I'd never heard that term before.
Well,
yes, that's the website. Thanks for putting that in. Appreciate that.
Sounds excellent.
So let me put in my number if you want more information.
Thanks for sharing that information there.
Sure. You're welcome.
And let me do this real quick too. The brother asked a question about, he said we should have had more people here. I agree with him 100%. But one thing we can do is take this message to the people. And one of the things that I had recommended that we do is to create a publication that we can circulate mainly in places where the information might be needed the most. I spoke with Salim Adafo over there in Commerce Heights, and I know there's a lot of needs over there. And he had given me a list of places where you could drop off flyers, pamphlets or information on health or whatever you want. He gave me a list. And also he had his monthly meetings with the people in the neighborhood there. He said he could share the information there as well. And so if anybody else have any ideas about how we can spread this information, we'd love to hear from you before we close out.
I've got one idea, which is
okay.
Probably the easiest one. This is being, live streamed to YouTube. This whole program will be available on YouTube. Everybody's on YouTube watching people do stupid stuff. You can simply share this video. This information is easily accessible to everybody who has a cell phone. You know, YouTube has 2 billion users. You can't pass out 2 billion flyers. So, you know, and every workshop UBC has, the recent ones anyway, are on the YouTube page. So folks can actually, as if they were here, they could get that information, and they're more likely to watch it than read it, for real. So, you know, we can, you know, after this this program is over, we're gonna send, like we always do, we send out the YouTube link to all the folks who are on our mailing list. Share it, you know, share it with folks who not gonna read that pamphlet, but they might watch that video real quick, right? So this information is actually available on the World Wide Web. Like I said, you got, you know, 2 billion users on YouTube, not monthly, right? So it's a big outlet to get information out. It's just that whether people are interested or not is one thing, but it is easily accessible on YouTube. Mama Kabibi has her hand up, by the way.
Asante Baba, first of all, we are showing our age. I'm looking at everybody's picture here. I would dare say that the average age is probably in 60s, number one. And young people now don't read no doggone flyer. We have to get out. If the Sister Lauren spoke to a gathering of young people this weekend for the, what was the National
Week of Healing?
Week of Healing. First of all, go to that event, find out who those groups are, connect with organizations such as the Malcolm X Grassroots Organizing Committee and others that are in the community doing work. And we must learn how to use these barcoding systems and social media, which is where you can gain access to young people and give them the information that we want them to have and organize ourselves better. We must move forward with the times.
Okay. If I can say something, sister brought up what I went through. What I did for this event, I copied the flyer. I was Bernita Thompson sent us Cecil and I the email. So I just clicked in the email, but then when I sent to people, folks don't read the email. So I said, let me send text. So I copied the picture and then sent information about the program. But on the flyer, it only had the telephone number for the Zoom meeting. So now I have all these people who said, what's the password? What's the passcode? And I called earlier to find out what it was. So now what I'll do is I'll just take as the brother said, I'll just take the recording and send it to all the people that I invited who didn't come, because, you know, I'm thinking that I didn't give them enough information that they could click in. I just gave them that 818 number.
Oh, good. Thanks so much. Well, in doing this work, we have to use all means necessary. As Malcolm said, by any means necessary. So social media, print, email, every means necessary we gotta use. Some are better than others, but I think we have to use all at our disposal.
I'm gonna second what Mama Kabibi said, and we should have some presence at the National Week of Healing, and you know, check out those organizations that show up, and you know say connect, you know, find a way to connect, and you know, let's try to make something happen. It can be a small project at first, but it may be a way to, you know, share what we're thinking about, what we're doing with some young people on the ground, and you know, they can also help us. What's the best way to get in touch with young people? How do we do this? You know, find out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go online and check it out, the schedule, see what's going on. Everybody's involved. Yeah, it's important. Connectivity, as the article was talking about loneliness. And well, no, the article Iapo was mentioned, sent was about connectivity. Yeah, being connected. Yeah.
So I just wanted to share this is from the website. This is some of the organizations that are involved with, I guess, co-sponsors of the program. There's a lot of groups here, but some of this is communication, awareness, what have you, but there's definitely a lack of presence of any organization actually in the, I would say, in the Pan-African realm, in the Pan-African community. We don't, there's no, and it's all on who's organizing it and who they know and who they contact. But I do notice a lot of groups on here, and this is something that many of our organizations, including the Healing Circle, the United Black Community, our religious organizations, our political organizations. There's so many groups that could be co-sponsors of this if we were aware of it. Oftentimes, our lack of connection on the grassroots level, and grassroots in terms of in the community. Oftentimes, we are left not really knowing about things like this, and it's really, I say, it's more on us being more present on the streets, if you will, for lack of better terminology, right? Being, we are, as a Pan-African community, we are somewhat insular. In many ways, we are insular. We are the ocean, we are the water that we swim in for the most part. But the broader community, oftentimes we don't have much of a presence. And this list of, take a guess of, we're talking about I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 organizations. The closest thing I see on here that's proximate to the community in terms of where the Pan-Africans find themselves is We Act Radio. But for the most part,
what about the group down the bottom there, Kaleshi, with the red, black, and green emblem?
Yeah.
There? Who is it? I can't read that information at the bottom. What does it say? Can you see that?
Explore Black Business.
Yeah. Explore Black Business. Explore Black Business. Right.
Oh,
But
okay,
I'm saying there's no organizations that are in LC Pan, for instance, in this list of many, many organizations. And these are, for the most part, from what I can tell, fairly local groups. So it's just another, my point is that for us to have an impact on the broader community, we need to, as a Pan-African community, as a nationalist community, be more present, and be more on the ground. And there's some groups that do a better job of it than others. Obviously, MBUF did, and some, and I guess they still do that a lot better than other groups. But it's very important if we're going to have an impact. Otherwise, we only have potential of saving a very few, while the masses linger. So it's important that we have a presence, and we should reach out to the organizers. There's still an opportunity for Optimum Men's Health, United Black Community, many groups to be present at, it's still about a week and a couple weeks away from the program. So
what day does it start?
It starts on the 6th of August, and it goes until, at least the calendar, it goes until the 12th.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I put in the chat, the session every Thursday. Oh, there's only one more Thursday before the event, but that'll be the session where you can join and give ideas and say what you want to do, who you want to work with. If even now we've been doing it. There were 4 weeks, 4 brainstorming sessions Thursdays. I joined 2, 3, and 4. And that's when the young sister Charnel asked me to do the workshop on co-ops and economics. So I put that in, and that's the direct link to the Thursday discussion group.
Mm-hmm. So they got an economic engine part of this as well?
Yes, I'm doing, I met her at the National Black Co-op Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know she was from DC, and she's in, Southeast. So, and so we've been dealing with co-op information together. So yeah, so she asked me to do it. So my idea was to have 3 types of co-ops: the consumer co-op, where Thea would come and do Ashley Pure, the credit union as a co-op, and one of your representatives, either Kalechi or Rory, could talk about the credit union. And the third one was the food co-op in Southeast. Now, there's a food grocery co-op in Southeast that I have worked on contacting the organizers, and I haven't heard back from them. And I guess at this point, because I don't have a location and exact time of the Family Day event on Sunday the 6th. And the last one, the presenter will be Paul Thompson, who will talk about the 5 mindsets and what we need to do in our community to increase our own wealth. So that's the concept at this point. So yeah. So if anybody has any ideas, just come to that Thursday meeting. And Charnel has her contact information there. Right there, yes. You can contact her if you have any, ideas or something you want to do.
Okay. Very good, very good. So we've said a whole lot, and it's not over. We plan to do a lot of other things to get the word out about this health forum tonight. So and some of the other things that we're doing as well. Bob Rasfig, you have time to share about the next forum that United Black Community is doing in September.
Hey, Bob.
Okay.
On the 15th of September of this year, we're going to have our 19th annual John Coltrane music and poetic tribute. And it's going to be at 7 p.m. at the E-Life Vegan Restaurant, which is located out in Capitol Heights on Central Avenue, 9185 Central Avenue in Capitol Heights. Now they are planning to move to a new location right down the mall there. I don't think they've moved yet. Robert Rook is trying to get his last inspections from the county before he makes the final move, but we should have it there. And I showed the new address with it. But it should be a wonderful occasion. We celebrate Train and his wonderful music, his legacy and his life. And so far we have lined up some very interesting and exciting musicians. Janelle Gill, a beautiful pianist. In fact, she performed last year with Master Abaday Quartet.
It's on the 16th, Bob? On the 15th, Bob? I'm sorry?
15th, Friday, September 15th, yes.
Yeah, bro, gotcha.
Was that the date in the calendar?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, bro.
Oh,
that's
okay.
correct.
Third Friday of each month.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, third, okay.
Third Friday of each September, I should say. But our forums are held on the third Friday. Of course, we don't have a forum in November. We celebrate Kwanzaa during December, and we don't have a forum in January. So
or August as well.
In August this year, right? No forum in August.
Right.
So we've got about almost 2 months, 1 month and a half now before the forum. And Janelle Gill and her group will be there. Kaba Soul Singer has participated in our Coltrane tributes in the past. Also, Kaba Soul Singer, everyone knows Kaba. He's a program on WPFW, African Deep Thought, every Monday from 3 to 5. Very interesting topics, and he's also a local performer, a musician. And we'll have the Malcolm X drummers and dancers.
Okay, very good, very good.
And we were hoping to have Nkechi Taifa, esteemed resident poet, but she has another engagement that night. So I'm reaching out to Sumaya Abdullah to provide the poetry for that evening. Nkechi informed me the dates, but she's not going to be able to participate. So we're looking for an exciting time on that night as we pay tribute to our great musician and visionary, Brother John Oneruth Coltrane.
Great.
I want to come out and enjoy a wonderful program, beautiful atmosphere. We will be in the new restaurant of Everlasting Life and enjoy some good vegan, wholesome, natural foods. As we were talking about, a plant-based diet is advocated by many of us, and we feel that that's certainly a good road to health and well-being in our community. Appreciate everyone coming out, being a part of that.
Yeah.
On the 15th of September at 7 p.m.
And word will be out next few weeks about the tribute as we go forward.
Sir, we'll do a calendar, and we'll be certainly having radio announcements.
Right.
Cover show. Full of programs on PFW, as well as WOL. We will get the word out, most definitely. So, Santi Sana, look forward to everyone.
One other thing I want to mention before we go, I listened to Dr. Watkins on WPFW, 2:00 on Mondays.
Yes, just before the cover show.
Yeah, I think he provided a lot of helpful information as well on our health. He talked a lot about diabetes and how we can treat diabetes and reverse diabetes and a lot of other diseases that we just talked about. But we have to put in the work for it to happen. And I advocate us to listen to that show as well. So, because he provided a lot of pertinent information about healthy living. And most people might not, want to become pure vegan, but I think if we just do the bare minimum, I think we can begin to show some improvement in our health in our community. But
no question.
Yeah, but I think Dr. Watkins provide real good information, so I advocate that as well. 2:00 every Monday afternoon, 2 to 3. And right after his show, another good show, Kaba, Soul Singer, 3 to 5.
Absolutely. African Deep Thought.
Yes, African Deep Thought. So Kaleshi, there's no other questions or comments, you want to close us out?
Yeah, but I will make a couple of I guess shameless plugs. Announcements.
Some commercials. Make it plain, brother. Make it plain.
Yeah, bro. So just a couple of commercials. So tomorrow morning, we have brother Dr. Gerald Horn. He's going to be speaking at the Appeal Historical Cultural Literacy Workshop. So he's talking about a topic that, history, but it's important because we have to understand the context of this empire we live in the belly of, to really understand our position and how to maximize that position. You have to appreciate the history. You have to appreciate the entity itself, the country. And and what pulls the levers, if you will. So it's really important. He's actually talking about it's the counter revolution of 1836, which is focused on Texas, and Texas is a very important state in terms of the history of this country, especially in relation to Black people. Historically speaking, if you understand the history of Texas, it's this may seem obvious, but it's the most racist state. But we're not just saying you throwing the word around. It literally existed and exists and became a part of the Union specifically for the purpose of maintaining slavery. It wasn't like any other southern states. It literally, it moved to Mexico to maintain slavery and moved out of Mexico to maintain slavery. And fascism and imperialism is very much tied to that. And some of that history is being relived right now because people don't know that history. So it's really critical. Tomorrow morning, Dr. Horn will be sharing. So please go to appealinc.org/events to register for that workshop. You will not be disappointed. That's at 11 a.m. in the morning. And we also
but Kalishi, could I say something real quick about Dr. Horn? He was the first person I heard say this, that Texas at one time was a country. Can you believe that? I didn't know that until he said it was a country for almost 11 years.
Yeah, I mean,
flag and everything.
Yeah, they left Mexico because Mexico abolished slavery, and and eventually they found the southern U.S. as a comfortable place, and they joined the Confederacy for that reason. But yes, so it's a very important history, especially when you talk about Juneteenth, Galveston, all that is tied in. The history of Mexico, the first Black president of in North America was not in the United States, and I don't mean I mean literally. It was the Mexican president, the first Black president, because they abolished slavery and were much more progressive than the U.S. was. But Texas is a big part of that history, and we don't know enough of it. So I encourage folks to join. You will be very happy you did so. Also, we have put out the save a date for our Founders Day program, the Peels Founders Day program, which is going to be back in person this year for the first time in 3 years at the Thurgood Marshall Center. So we're getting ready for that. Tickets are available now. Looking for advertisers, looking for sponsors, looking for donors of all sorts, including auction items. You got little trinkets, you got big giant paintings and art and whatever it is you want to donate to be part of the auction as a fundraiser. That's all being accepted right now. So thank you for allowing me to make that shameless plug. I'm done.
Hey, that's good, bro.
And thank you all, for joining us this evening. I never worry about the folks who aren't here. I really worry about the folks who are here. And of course, we know that this is being live streamed, will be on YouTube, so we'll share it, and more folks will be able to partake and benefit from the wisdom shared by Dr. Jawar and others this evening. It's very important that we share information, and this is not sexy work, right? There's some things that's sexy. You just gotta say the word, and the whole the whole world's gonna show up, knocking on your door. But when you talk about the most important things, our health, things we don't want to talk about because we don't want to alter our behavior, then you get a different audience. But at the end of the day, we appreciate everybody who's here and who's here every week as we tackle every month as we tackle these various topics. And of course, those who will watch it later, please share it with your circle, share with the folks that you think need it the most who aren't here, right? This is an opportunity. They can literally watch it, as they doing whatever they're doing. So, well, thank you all for coming through. And thank you, Bobby and Mamu, for putting this together.
Thank you.
And Barbara Rosfik for sharing, and all those who asked questions and participated. Thank you all, and good night.
Thank you all. Have a great evening. Great seeing everybody and hearing everybody.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank
Bob.
you. Santi Sana, Baba Jawara.
Yeah,
Santi
Mama
Sana.
Kabibi. All right.
Here you go, Bob.
Great having Mama Kabibi with us tonight.
Yeah, it was great. Great seeing all you.
I see Mama Zatiti in the house too.
Yeah, Mama Zatiti has surprised us with her presence tonight. You know, she was very much involved with a lot of our activities early on, but certainly with the John Coltrane tribute early on. So it's an honor to have her with us tonight.
Yeah, and my Mama Aziza, of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
it's a pleasure to know y'all, and I really mean that. God bless y'all.
Watu Wazuri.
Yeah,
Good night, everyone.
Peace and love.